Chapter 11. That night, the guards locked Harriet into the room with the princesses, and all 13 of them listened as the big iron bar went clunk in the sockets. There was a sad little sound in the room, the sound of a dozen mouse princesses sighing at once. Harriet scowled at the barred door and almost felt like sighing herself. She walked to the little screened-off bed. Just like the night before, January bought her a mug of hot chocolate, and just like the night before, Harriet kept it in her cheek pouch and spit it all into the chamber pot. Then she lay down in the bed with the poncho of invisibility wrapped around her shoulders and waited. There was a scuffling and a scurrying and the sound of a stone door opening. Harriet slipped out of the bed and snuck after the princesses. Down the stairs they went again. They crossed through the forest of metallic trees, and this time Harriet didn't break off any samples. When the boats pulled away from the dock, Gemini was the last one to leave. "Got your lead underwear on tonight?" he asked cheerfully. Harriet hurriedly climbed aboard. The mole groaned. "There it is." He pulled the boat across the dark water. Harriet squeezed August's hand again. She almost had 2/3 of a plan. Well, 3/5. Definitely more than half anyway. At least 4/7 of a very solid plan. When they reached the dock, Harriet slipped out of the boat. She was on her guard, in case Gemini was planning to double-cross her. But the mole pulled off his cloak, adjusted his tuxedo, and said, "Well." August looked around for Harriet, which would have worked better if Harriet wasn't invisible. "I'm over here," said Harriet. "Okay. Gemini, day after tomorrow, I may need you and your brothers to do some digging." "Really?" "Ah," said Harriet, who had underestimated how strongly moles felt about digging. "Yes?" Gemini grabbed her by the arm, put his shoulder against her waist, and pulled. Harriet nearly decked him before she realized that the mole was trying to dance with her. "You look like a mole dancing with the disembodied hamster head," said August. "It's very weird." "Dancing is weird if you ask me." Harriet disentangled herself from the waltzing mole. "Can you dig up into the castle?" "Sure," said Gemini. "No problem." "How fast do you want it done?" "I can give you 5 minutes," said Harriet. "Will that be enough?" Gemini drew himself up into his full height, which barely came up to Harriet's collarbone. "We're descended from a long line of mole witches and mole engineers," he said proudly. "We can do it in 3. That's 5/7 of an extremely solid plan." The next morning, Harriet woke up at 7:30, although the guard had the good sense not to jabber with anything. "I'm coming," she said grumpily. "I don't know why I get until tomorrow." "We are growing impatient," said the Mouse King, when she arrived rather frazzled in the throne room. We who?" asked Harriet. "It is the royal we," said the rat advisor hurriedly. "The royal we is what it's called when kings and queens refer to just themselves as we instead of I." Harriet's parents had never done anything like that, and Harriet thought it was all rather silly. "Oh, good for royal them," said Harriet. "Look, tomorrow morning, all right? I'm on the cusp of a major breakthrough here." "You think you know where the princesses go at night?" "I am forming some ideas," said Harriet, backing toward the door. "Investigating leads, gathering clues. I'll see you tomorrow, your royal weeness." She ducked out of the room and went down to the stables. Mumphrey poked his beak over the stall door. "We'll be done soon, buddy," she told him. "Then we can get back on the road." She considered. "Well, I will have doomed my kingdom to some kind of horrible, squishy future." Mumphrey glanced over at the stall where Hyacinth was standing and said, "Quirk," which is quail for "no rush." Tomorrow morning, I need you and Wilbur to be under the tower with the princess's bedroom, said Harriet. It's the one with the bars and all the windows. Quirk, said Mumphrey, which is quailed for. That seems weird. Bring Hyacinth along with you, said Harriet. It'll be easier. She stood on tiptoes and hugged him fiercely. She spent the rest of the morning composing a letter home to her parents. It was a postcard of the Mouse Kingdom, so she had to write small and couldn't explain things very well. Dear Mom and Dad, I am in the Mouse Kingdom trying to break a curse. The Mouse King is kind of a jerk and I don't trust him. If I wind up dead or cursed again, please make sure Mumphrey is well fed and look after Wilbur because it'll be my fault he lost his job in the stables here. Also, if I fail, the kingdom will be doomed in a couple of generations, so you should probably talk to somebody about that. Love, Harriet. She stared at the letter for a while and then added, P.S. Do not worry. She suspected that Wilbur would tell her that writing do not worry on a letter about how she might wind up dead was not going to stop her mother from worrying, but she couldn't think of anything else to do. Life was easier when I was invincible, she muttered, and went into town to mail her postcard. That night, when January brought her the hot chocolate, Harriet drank down every drop and went to sleep. She had a feeling that tomorrow was going to land like a ton of bricks, and she wanted to be well rested when it crashed down on her head. Chapter 12. In the morning, Harriet was summoned before the Mouse King at the unholy hour of 5 o'clock in the morning. This is ridiculous, said Harriet. Doesn't the king sleep? 4 hours a night, said the guard. He spends the rest of the time sorting the royal library by color. By color, said Harriet, scandalized. How do you find a book in it if you don't know what color it is? We've all stopped trying, said the guard, and opened the door to the throne room. The Mouse King and his rat advisor waited for her at the end of the hall. Well, have you found where the princesses go at night to dance? Yep, said Harriet. There was a brief, awkward silence. What, really? Sure did. Well then, tell us. Look, said Harriet, I'd rather only tell this story once, and it's all tied up with the curse and whatnot. Can you bring everybody in? The Mouse King inhaled sharply, but waved for the guards to bring the princesses. Harriet kept an eye on the door. It was very early in the morning. Would Wilbur make it in time? It was very awkward making small talk with the king while you wait for a curse to be broken. Harriet tried. So, how about this weather we're having? This earned her a deathly glare. She looked at the door again. Still no sign of Wilbur. Color code any good books lately? Yes, said the Mouse King. 3 green ones. They were lovely. What were they about? They were green, said the Mouse King, as if it were obvious. The princesses shuffled in, yawning. September leaned on May and snored. Now that we're all assembled, said the Mouse King, tell us what you have learned. Right, said Harriet. It's all very simple. At night, a magic staircase opens in their room, and they go down into an underground cavern full of magic metal trees, across a black river that's not quite made of water, and dance all night with the 12 sons of the Mole Witch. They're dancing on a symbol that I'm pretty sure is powering the Mole Witch's spells. Then they come back upstairs. The Mouse King stared at her. Do you have any proof? Asks the rat advisor. Harriet reached into her pack. Right here, she said, and pulled out the branch from the silver tree. Wham! What was that? Pretty sure that's the Mole Witch now. As Harriet had half suspected it would, when the king touched something from the kingdom underground, it had alerted the Mole Witch. The flagstones crackled and split. Up into the throne room emerged the head and shoulders of a gray mole with wild hair and a large pointed black hat. "Who dares to challenge my spells?" screeched the Mole Witch. The Mouse King drew himself up. "Who are you, madame?" he said, "and why have you cursed my daughters?" "I am the witch, Mole Zelda. I am the Mouse King." "I'm sure you'll get along great," Harriet said to herself. The witch, Mole Zelda, folded her claws together and glared at the king. "It's not a curse," he said, "it's a spell. I have 12 sons, and I required 12 brides for them." "And why," said the Mouse King acidly, "did you choose our daughters for this?" "Here it comes," said Harriet to no one in particular. "I could have picked anyone," said Mole Zelda. "I just needed 12 dancing brides to power my magic." "Thought so," muttered Harriet. "But my sons are all named after signs of the zodiac," said Mole Zelda. "Your daughters are all named after months of the year. When I heard of them, it was obvious that they belonged together. Plus, yours could dance already, so it saved time." "How dare—" "Signs of the zodiac, you say," said the Mouse King. "Sure," said Mole Zelda. "Aries, Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, Libra, and all the rest. A good, proper naming scheme." She nodded to the king. "Yes," said the king slowly. "Yes, it is." He turned toward the princesses, looking suddenly thoughtful. Harriet cleared her throat. "About my half of the kingdom," she said. The Mouse King ignored her. 12 months, he said. 12 signs. Yes, of course. He stepped down from the dais towards Mole Zelda. "You have just given me an answer to a problem that has worried me for many years, madame." "I could swear that there was something about half the kingdom as a reward," said Harriet to his back. "I have 12 beautifully organized daughters, but where would I find suitably organized men to marry them? What was the point of giving them such names if they were going to go off and ruin it?" "Yes, exactly. You understand, it's a terrible quandary. Unless they marry each other." The 12 princesses took a step back. One or two of them burst into tears, but the Mouse King didn't seem to notice. September had fallen asleep again. Mole Zelda sniffed. "I didn't expect you to be so reasonable about this," she said, "given that I plan to keep them underground forever and all that." The Mouse King shrugged. "So they'll be close by and can visit for holidays. I don't see the problem." "Other than the eternal imprisonment bit?" asked Harriet, who was pretty sure no one was listening to her. "Clearly we should have talked sooner," said Mole Zelda. "Would have saved me some spell casting." "I could really go for half the kingdom about now," said Harriet. The Mouse King waved a hand at her dismissively. "Your services are no longer needed," he said. "Oh no, half the kingdom and a royal princess. Those were the rules. I'll take August if you don't mind." "I'm, not really interested in marrying you," whispered August, "no offense." "It's fine," Harriet whispered back. "I'm 12. I'm not marrying anybody. I just want to stop this plan." The Mouse King glared at Harriet. "The princesses are not available," he said. "It would break up the set." "They're people," said Harriet, "not a set." She glanced toward the door again and was enormously relieved to see Wilbur's nose poking around the edge of the door frame. "They're princesses," said the Mouse King. "They will marry whomever they are told to marry. You know, I was feeling a little bad about what I was going to do to your palace, but suddenly I don't anymore." "Look," said Harriet, "we had a deal. You promised me half the kingdom and a princess. Are you going back on your word?" she sniffed. "Some king you are." The Mouse King went red in the face. "How dare you talk to me like that, you insolent hamster! Guards, seize her!"